Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is, and welcome back. I hope your Thursday has been outstanding and your week is coming to a nice, beautiful close. Tomorrow is Friday. We're excited about that, but it's not here yet. And we got a bunch of business to attend to today. Legal updates everywhere. We've got this judge out of New Hampshire that has just decided he's basically the president again. We've seen a lot of this happening from a lot of these judges, but this judge came out of New Hampshire, and two things that we were concerned about have now happened. One, class certification for all of the babies of illegal aliens, and a nationwide injunction for that class so that their babies will be U.S. citizens, because this judge, Joseph Norman LaPlante, can override the president using class actions because the Supreme Court didn't close that little loophole the last time we were in their court. So we'll talk about exactly what's going on. We got Trump's memo that went into the court here. You can see 26 pages on this puppy right here. We'll take a look at. Then we've got the actual memo that just dropped from the judge. This just came out like an hour ago. Fresh out of the oven. He dropped his orders, but then he's now backfilling it with his memo. So we'll see what he said about all of that. Now, meanwhile, Trump nuking education and free tuition for illegals, great development. And even John Thune was out in the Senate talking about how the judges are problematic. So all that coming up. Then we're going to turn our attention to Ryan Routh. You remember Ryan Routh, who, of course, is the individual accused of this guy shooting at Trump, not hitting him on this one, but shooting at him. And what we'll see is he has fired his entire defense team today. Now, we'll see what Judge Cannon does with this, but he came into court. He said, "You're all fired. I want to represent myself." Lots of drama in the courtroom. The judge kicked out the media and sounds like got into it with him to explain, man, it's a bad idea if you fire your attorneys. You've got trial in September. Hello. So drama went down today. We'll see what happened. And there was another, and this is something that I did not realize, but there were other people, co-conspirators with this dude who were just learning about, also took guilty pleas. Okay. This was reported from Headline USA. Shout out to them. They say two other people were charged in helping him. The heck, where'd that happen? How'd that happen? We didn't know about that until until recently. So that all is stuff we'll go through. We've got the final minute order that came out today, fresh out of the oven from Judge Cannon. Secret Service is suspending people. And we got a little Senator John Kennedy coming up. All right, so that's happening. Then what we got is some EPA updates, because the EPA is now under Lee Zeldin releasing some good stuff. And he's got a full video out on this that we'll take a look at. But they also released a website, basically updated their website with the press release saying that they've got information about geo-engineering, weather modification, solar engineering, stuff that may or may not have caused some of the recent flooding that we've seen around the country. And so they released a whole memo on this and a full website. And there were some interesting Q&As in here that I wanted to share. How is solar engineering distinct from weather modification? And you'll see, yeah, the U.S. and state governments have historically been involved in weather modification, right? So it's like, oh, yeah. So you're admitting that you do it? We already know, but thanks for admitting it. So contrails, all the things, all coming up. And so it's going to be a beautiful stream, my friends. Very glad that you're here and with us. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being membos. Thanks for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done that. We, of course, will be around here for our members only after party. So if you're a membo, come join us. We'll see you in the after party. YouTube friends, stick around. We'll drop a link in the chat. On locals, we'll just see you. Hang tight, and we'll be back for the after party. So we got a great stream ahead. And again, happy Thursday. All right, let's see what's cooking out there. We've got this judge who is now in charge. Another judge deciding I'm the president now and overruling President Trump. You can see we've got this judge out of New Hampshire, and this was a Bush appointee. Back in 2007, he assumed office. This guy went to Georgetown University Law School because, of course, and was appointed, now presiding over this district. And what this case involves, of course, is this person called Barbara versus Donald Trump. And Barbara is a pseudonym for illegal aliens who want to have babies, and they want those babies to have automatic birthright citizenship because they say that even being in violation of our laws gives them that right. Even though they ransacked and broke into our country and invaded our country, they say, well, since we're here, since we came across the finish line, we get whatever we want. And so they're suing. And remember that this already went up to the Supreme Court because some other judge in California, in Washington, I think, in California, said there was a nationwide injunction and that all illegal babies were now legal babies. Trump came out and said, no, you're not. Your interpretation of the law is wrong. I'm the president. I got elected by the people. And I've decided the interpretation and the execution of the law, which is my power under the Constitution, is being interpreted invalidly in accordance with the law. And they changed the policy, as is their right. That's why they got elected. So the judge said you can't do that at all. Issued a nationwide injunction. Trump took that up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court came back down and actually said, yeah, Trump wins on that. You can't stop him. This nationwide injunction crap is ridiculous. And the Supreme Court sent it back down to that judge and said, stop it. So, of course, in that Supreme Court decision, we realized it wasn't as complete as we would hope it would be. And they left out, and Judge Alito pointed this out, this possibility for other hack judges like this guy out of New Hampshire. All they got to do is just certify it as a class. And then as this judge did, say it's a nationwide class and then issue an injunction. And so these are the two orders. We'll backfill this in a minute. But the judge came out. The name is Joseph LaPlante from Georgetown. He says, after careful consideration, I am going to grant the motion for a class-wide preliminary injunction for the whole class, saying they've demonstrated that they're going to meet the class requirements. And we have to do this in public interest. Because if Trump is able to execute his order, they're not going to be citizens. And that's going to harm the public somehow. Now, pursuant to federal rules of civil procedure, we now this court orders that all of you are enjoined, okay, everybody, Homeland, State, Secretary, everybody, you are enjoined, you are stopped, and you are restrained from enforcing Trump's executive order that eliminates so-called birthright citizenship for illegal aliens. The court requires a nominal bond of $1, okay, that's the amount of damages, $1, another hack judge called Joseph N. LaPlante. $1, that's all the damages that might be available for the government. That's all it's going to cost the government if the government is proven right. They get $1 back. Nominal, it means nothing. Now, this injunction is stayed for 7 days, and you'll also notice the judge in this other order came down, he says, well, they're also a class. Who? All the illegal alien unborn babies that aren't out now that suddenly the left cares about? Unborn babies? They're like, well, they're actually people, you know. And you're like, what? What happened to you guys? Is your neck hurt from that reverse? Now, after careful consideration, this judge said, the supporting declarations in the applicable law, I certify you as a class. Here's why. All the members are so numerous, right? There's a lot of illegal aliens and having babies here. So there's so many of you. We can't just bring everybody together individually via joinder. And there are questions of law that's common to everybody because you all want your babies to have citizenship here. That's in part why you're here. And the claims of the petitioners are typical. They all want their babies to have citizenship. And petitioners and their counsel will fairly adequately represent everybody in the class. And so in light of the above, this hack judge from New Hampshire says, you are now a part of this class. And here's what the class covers. Says all current and future persons who were born after February 20th, that person's mother was unlawfully present, so illegal alien mother, and the person's father was not a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, you're good. You're in this class. And the class now has a class-wide injunction. So your children are babies now. Now, the United States citizen and all of this here is now part of this class. And so you are enjoined, right? If you fall within this bucket, your baby's a citizen, thanks to Judge Joseph N. LaPlante, an unelected judge from New Hampshire who just overrode the will of the entire American populace who voted for the president because we're sick and tired of illegal immigration and the exploitation of our laws. And sitting around here lecturing us about how we need to be humanitarian or something like that, as these people are invading our country and exploiting our goodwill and then demanding that we stop being so mean to them or something like that. Now, we're pretty sick of it. So as you can see, Trump's DOJ submitted this. Now, before the judge came down with these orders, let me just give you some background on what this DOJ submitted to this judge, because this was their argument. And of course, they'll appeal this. This will have to work its way all the way back up to the Supreme Court. And just like Judge Alito said the first time they were there, class actions are also another mechanism of abuse. And you can say, look, this judge is in compliance with the Supreme Court because he's technically following the rules, but he's doing the same thing, right? It's like when your brother is standing in your doorway and you're like, don't come in my room, and he's not allowed to go in your room, and then he just sticks his arm through the door. And you say, get out of my room. And he's like, well, I'm not really in it. Because like his feet are outside, you know? And he's like in it. And he's like, you're like, the point of the rule, mom said, don't come in, is so you're not bothering me. And so, like separate you two so you stop fighting. But then your brother's like, sticking his hand in there, like, I'm not in your room. I'm not in your room. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. It's one of those. I'm not touching you. It's like, you're right here. The judge is doing the same thing. He knows better than that. He knows that he's doing the I'm not touching you in the face thing. The Supreme Court said, stop it. And he's doing it anyways because he's a maniac. So the Trump DOJ set this back, and now we'll have to battle this up to the Supreme Court. But Trump and the DOJ said this. On the first day of his administration, Trump signed an executive order ending the executive practice of extending, right? The executive branch just like allowed it, ending the practice, because Trump is the first real president we've had in a long time, to persons who have not received the privilege of the Constitution or Congress. You don't get to come in here and take citizenship, saying that's called an insurrection, right? That is you taking things from the government. That is a predatory incursion. The Constitution's Citizenship Clause provides all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction are citizens of the United States and the states in which they reside. 14th Amendment. And that's a pretty important phrase right there. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It doesn't mean like you're physically in the place where the laws exist, so the laws can be applied to you. It's, are you subjecting yourself to the jurisdiction? Or are you challenging the jurisdiction by saying, I'm not going to follow your laws. I'm just going to come in here illegally. The EO recognizes that the Constitution does not grant birthright citizenship, never did, to the children of aliens who were unlawfully present in the United States, or the children of aliens whose presence is lawful but temporary. You're just here temporary, not permanent. So you can't just have babies here. So prior misimpressions of this by other useless presidents have created perverse incentives for illegal immigration that has negatively impacted this country's sovereignty, national security, and economic stability. But the generation that enacted the 14th Amendment back during the Civil War and the Reconstruction Amendments did not fate the United States to this reality. They didn't say anybody who just comes in here and drops a baby as a citizen. That's not what they said. Instead, text, history, and precedent support what common sense compels. The Constitution does not harbor a windfall clause granting American citizenship to the children of those who circumvented or outright defied federal immigration laws. You're going to give the thief the benefit of the doubt? Well, you took that big screen TV out the front door, and since you made it out the front door, you're good because you're out. And once you're out, it's yours. It's your property. Be like, what kind of insane country is this? Plaintiffs, 3 non-citizens, illegals, without lawful permanent resident status in the United States are now suing. They're challenging Trump's orders. Illegal aliens coming in and suing us, saying, we deserve rights in your country for our babies. What, you came in illegally. So what? Stop violating our due process and give us everything in your country. What it means to be the subject to the jurisdiction thereof. They say, well, it's enough that we're here. They say that Trump's order violates the Citizenship Clause, and they're also suing under the EPA because, of course. Now, in the motion for class certification, they want everybody to be incorporated in the class. And Trump's DOJ says, listen, Judge, at the outset, it's not entirely clear whether they seek final certification or provisional certification or whatever, but all of this is improper. A court must ensure that the plaintiff complied with the rules, and they have not done that. Now, in addition, they can't show that the representative parties will be fairly and adequately presented and represented here. And so you should deny their class certification and the injunction. Of course, the judge did it. Didn't grant that, actually, passed it and ordered it. Now, the executive order, they give us some background, is an integral part of Trump's efforts at the border and to fix our immigration policy. And it rightfully corrects the prior misreading of this clause. It recognizes in Section 1 that the Constitution and the Immigration Nationality Act provide for citizenship for all persons who are born into the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And it identifies two circumstances where your birth does not count. One, not a citizen. Two, here temporarily. Now, the EO, Trump's order, says don't issue citizenship documents to people who are born in violation of these things. And the EO directs everybody else to follow the order, Secretary of State, AG, Homeland, and more. Now, the executive order at issue here they're suing over was challenged in various courts immediately following its promulgation, including in a lawsuit previously brought in this court by various organizational plaintiffs who are, the illegal aliens, man, they get free lawyers for everything. Not only does the FBI let them go, not only do they not need driver's licenses, not only do they not need to have health care and just go into emergency rooms and ransack the health industry, ransack the public schools, and more. Now they get free lawyers, class action certification, pseudo-anonymous protections, and more. Now, while some courts presiding over the challenges subsequently issued nationwide or universal injunctions, you didn't, Judge. But here in this court, instead, it limited us from enforcing this against the particular plaintiffs, like the people who are listed in the lawsuit. Now, as this was happening, the government filed 3 emergency applications to the Supreme Court, and that was going to challenge the nationwide scope of those injunctions. And remember, that was Trump versus Casa, where Ketanji was in the dissent, ... wait for it, wrecking her entire credibility. Full stop. And it was a disaster from her. But the court came down and the majority said, no more nationwide injunctions. You can't do this stuff. Stop being ridiculous. So on June 27th, the Supreme Court held that universal injunctions against this EO were not proper because federal courts lack the authority to issue them. Stop it. The Supreme Court, however, declined to decide what was appropriate. What is the narrower relief that is appropriate? Saying lower courts should determine whether a narrower injunction is appropriate at all. So it can't be nationwide, but doesn't mean you don't have injunctive powers. It just can't be for everybody. So just limit it to the actual case and controversy that's in your district. You don't preside over the entire nation. You've got a little district right over there. So stick to that. Now, leaving them to consider any related arguments, send it back down to them. Now, the court accordingly directed the lower courts shall move expeditiously to ensure that, with respect to each plaintiff, the injunction comports with the principles of equities and more. Now, in discussing why universal injunctions were inappropriate, the Supreme Court noted that they circumvented the rules. They created de facto class actions at will. And despite this, and despite saying that class actions might be a problem, Judge Alito brought it up. We read it, we're like, oh gosh, he's like signaling to them. He's like, they're going to use class action, says Alito. And part of us was like, if he wouldn't have said anything, maybe they wouldn't have done it. But of course, he's pointing out a flaw in the logic of the ruling, which is his job. So immediately following the Supreme Court's ruling, they sued. Right now they're saying, oh, perfect, strategy changed. And what's going to happen, and Alito was very upset about this, he said, district courts should not view this decision, he said this to you, Judge, as an invitation to certify nationwide classes without scrupulous adherence to the rigors of the class rules. So immediately following the Supreme Court, they sued. The named plaintiffs are 3 non-citizens. They've got no lawful permanent resident status, illegal aliens, not here permanently. And they're expecting to have children. And they want those babies to have the full citizenship and the full privileges as you, because they don't really give a crap about what your citizenship means. They think that they're entitled to it by virtue of breaking our laws to be here. They say, well, it's good enough for us since we're here past the post, we win. Or have had children since February. Thus, these individuals allege that under the terms of the EO, they're born or to be born children, which again is wild. The left cares about these to be borns. It's like, don't you guys just want to send them to Planned Parenthood or something? Like, isn't that your MO? They're going to be denied citizenship at birth and bring claims challenging this lawlessness or the lawfulness of Trump's order. And so they want to propose class. They say, Judge, the burden on this is very high. The class action burden is not going to be met here. Saying their motion seeks to short circuit the normal course of events. We've cited a bunch of cases here. You can't certify a class. Plaintiffs cited a bunch of cases involving COVID and a bunch of other things. But even if this was available, it doesn't excuse them. They have an affirmative burden to meet the requirements of the rule, and they can't do it. First, the varying factual circumstances of the plaintiffs, like all these illegals, defeats their attempts to satisfy the rules. They're not actually common, right? They're not actually typical. It's like, it's different than the ads you see on TV. Do you have mesothelioma? Call your lawyers right now. They're trying to do that. Are you an illegal alien violating American law? Do you want your baby to be here even though you hate this country and you have crapped all over it to come in here? Plaintiffs must show the defendants have acted or refused to act on the grounds that apply to the class. And so it's not common. It's not representative. These requirements are intended to protect the class. But here, the proposed class and their members are differently situated. Specifically, they say that no person covered by the order is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States for the purposes of the 14th Amendment. And that is because the word subject to the jurisdiction thereof, they say, refers to an individual's domicile, and individuals covered by the executive order are not domiciled in the United States. So we just kind of switched here. This is the Trump response, and now they're calling themselves the defendants. All right. Anyways, so for the same reasons, discovery is warranted. You can't certify a class. And as to the first prong, the courts have expressed concerns about the prospect of pseudo-anonymous people too. These are all just made up people. We don't even know who they are. And they can sue without having any standing, as far as we know. The judge just says good enough. Relatedly, the entire exercise of considering this is premature because the scope of the CASA stay has not been decided. And Judge, you should not certify a nationwide class. We know he's going to. You should not certify a preliminary injunction and make them post a bond in a large amount. So for the foregoing reasons, please don't do that. Now, the judge has come back down. This guy right here, named Joseph Normand LaPlante, New Hampshire, appointed by W. He came out and issued this memo, and this one just came out. He says, all right, here's the deal. Here's why I'm certifying a nationwide class of illegal aliens so that all their babies can be citizens and count as part of America, even though they violated our laws. He says, this order grants a preliminary injunction and provisionally certifies a class of petitioners. Here's who these people are. So the pseudo-anonymous petitioners, because they have basically like legal premium process in America, premium due process, like America Plus, where they can just proceed pseudo-anonymously, and they get, senators flying down to meet with them and all sorts of weird things. So this person is named Barbara, I'm sure. And Sarah is another person who's suing, who's, I think, not even a born person. Okay, so Sarah has her guardian, her parent, or her next of friend called Susan, who I think is suing for Sarah. And then Mark is suing the guardian for Matthew. Yeah, biblical, isn't it? So bring this class action suit asking this court to enjoin the enforcement of Trump, right? So these unborn babies are suddenly having litigation here. Planned Parenthood having a rough one reading this one. So, what the heck? It's just a clump of cells. Enjoin the enforcement of an executive order. So they sue. They're suing the president. This is the judge writing now. And they're saying Trump's executive order is violating the law. So here's what happened. Trump issued this executive order. He says, if you're an illegal, your kids are not citizens. Go have kids back home. This court and 3 other preliminaries enjoined Trump. And within hours of the ruling of the Supreme Court, Then they came back to me, says the judge, and they asked for a certification of a class. And I'm going to grant that now. Now, here are the people. Petitioner Barbara is a citizen of Honduras. She currently resides in New Hampshire. She's got a husband there and 3 minor children. Her asylum application is pending. She's resided in the United States since 2024. Her husband, the father of the children, is not a U.S. citizen either. Okay, so 2 illegals. They are expecting their 4th child in October. And so they've got, I guess, probably 3 other citizens now prior to Trump coming in. And they're expecting a 4th child. So now it's going to be split, like a split family, right? That's interesting. So maybe those first 3 that they popped out before Trump came in will count as citizens, and then the 4th will not. So they're expecting our 4th child in October. And now Trump is going to strip our citizenship from that person. Barbara plans to seek for her child SNAP benefits. Of course. Of course she is. She's going to seek for her child SNAP benefits, Medicaid, and other benefits for which citizens are eligible. Okay, so her 4 babies now all get government benefits. She doesn't have to pay for it, but since they're citizens, she gets them, right? And then all the people on the left will say, illegal aliens, they never get any government benefits. It's against the law. Oh, okay, so then they just pop out 4 babies, and now the American taxpayer is responsible for their kids, and she's planning to get SNAP and having a 4th kid? Why are you having more kids if you can't pay for them? Oh, I know, because we'll pay for them. Petitioner Sarah is the daughter of a petitioner called Susan. She's from Taiwan. Susan and Sarah, so not an unborn kid, is a daughter. Susan has lived in the U.S. for 12 years. She is currently in the U.S. on a student visa and is in the process of applying for lawful permanent resident status based on her employment-based visa. Her husband, the father of her children, not a citizen and an illegal. So illegal father and temporary mother doesn't count. She gave birth to Sarah, this child who's now born, in April 2025 and applied for a passport for the child. She also has 3 other children, all of whom are U.S. citizens. Don't know if they're on SNAP benefits or not, though. Petitioner Matthew is the son of petitioner Mark. He came in from Brazil. Mark resides in Florida now. He has lived in the United States for 5 years, is in the process of applying for lawful permanent status. Matthew, who is Mark's first child, was born in Florida, March 2025, and got a passport. Mark's wife does not have lawful status in the U.S., so 2 illegals, their kids don't count. The petitioners request the court provisionally certify the class, and the judge is going to go through and give us the analysis, and he's going to say, well, these are the rules. Courts grant a lot of this. He says courts routinely grant class certifications. He's like, so Supreme Court, Judge Alito, so just so you know. We looked this up, got a bunch of cases. And we're going to grant provisional class certification and explain how it works. He says, petitioners, the illegal lawyers, have not demonstrated by a preponderance of the evidence, which is the low standard, like just more likely than not. They have not demonstrated, even at that low standard, that the class should include the parents, including expectant parents of the children, denied birthright citizenship by the executive order. Now, doubtless the parents of those children would suffer harms, but it's not detailed in the complaints. And so we're going to narrow the class a little bit more than you guys wanted. Like the class also doesn't include all of the parents. Narrowing the class sharpens the court's focus as well. And so therefore, the court provisionally certifies and focuses on a narrower class. Here's what they are. All current and future persons, we read it, who are born on or after Feb 20th. If the mom's illegal and the dad is not permanent, that baby counts as part of the class. That person's mother's presence in the U.S. was lawful but temporary, so like visa coming through, and the person's father was illegal, they're in the class too. Like those are the people. So broader than that, it doesn't count. Now, to satisfy the requirement of class actions, you got to have numerosity, which means a lot of people. Respondents, Trump objects to the inclusion of future persons in the class, arguing that future persons, they're not even conceived yet. They don't have standing. They don't have capacity to sue. So all future persons are going to be counted here. Including future class members is no bar to class certification. He says, I can make up unborn people who are fictional out in the future. No one cares. Although future class member children have not been born, as soon as they're born, they're going to join the class. So that's just how it's going to work. We'll just shove them in there. Yeah. Now, finally, more children will continuously populate the class as we're born. We know We're trying to make them not citizens. Hello, that's the point. Oh, yeah, no, well, yeah, they're going to keep just dropping babies as fast as possible. Lots of papooses being made right now. Commonality says to certify a class, this court must also find common questions of law or fact. And the judge is going to find here, they share legal questions, they all have violated our laws, and they all demand rights to American citizenship. And they're going to use our courts to sue us to get it, and our own judges are going to give it to them. The court agrees with them, says they raise several common questions of law. They're all being attacked by Trump, and we've all got similar issues. And Trump made an argument that there could be different outcomes among these different people. He says, well, no. The argument is about subject to the jurisdiction thereof. It involves domicile, and they all have the similar claim. Their claims are very typical amongst one another. And so the court agrees with them. They satisfy that element too, and the people who are representing the class action are going to adequately represent them. And so we're going to certify them. The judge gives us some case law, and he says the enforcement of Trump's order would constitute likely unlawful behavior towards the entire class. And because a single injunction and declaratory judgment would provide complete relief to all these illegals and their babies, we think this fits within the categories of a proper class. And it's going to be provisional. So we're going to continue to investigate this. It's not premature. And now, since we have the class, we're going to issue the injunction. Now, they've also asked for the preliminary injunction to not be ordered or issued, but the judge, of course, is going to do that. He says they're going to win. The 14th Amendment says, and the interpretation of it from Wong Kim Ark, and Wong Kim Ark, the parents of Wong Kim Ark in that Supreme Court case were lawful permanent residents. Wong Kim's parents were from China, and they came here permanently. They weren't going back. So they were lawful and permanent. But they are saying, well, they really meant domicile. And so the idea is that citizenship flows from domicile. And so like if they're living here, even if they're in violation of our law, the fact that they left the store with the big screen TV is good. They left the area. So they left their homeland. They're here. TV's theirs, which is their citizenship. Now, petitioners will succeed saying the Trump executive order violates the 14th Amendment. And so all these kids can just be citizens just because it's basically meaningless. Just hand it out to everybody, even if they break your laws. Irreparable injury in the preliminary injunction means that they can't make up for the harm. They can't be compensated later. They say the denial of citizenship to newborns would cause irreparable harm. They're not going to get the benefits that are associated to newborns in the class, which is the point. You're not entitled to those benefits. That's the point. The respondents reiterate their arguments, right? And this judge is saying, well, this is going to be a big harm to them. We say, we know the political branches have made that determination and made that decision. So we know what the consequences of those are. Just because you think it's going to be harmful doesn't give you the right to issue a class-wide, nationwide injunction that doesn't apply to all these specific people in the claim. Now, the respondents reiterate their arguments. The judge tosses them. He says, I agree with the illegals. Your class would suffer irreparable harm if I don't act. The denial of citizens to newborns, even temporary, is irreparable harm. It would render the children either undocumented non-citizens, just like their parents, or stateless entirely, which is why a lot of the executive branch kind of just allowed this to happen. Because if they're born here and they're not citizens, are they citizens of Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, wherever? What are their rules on that? They should be, because they're born to their citizens. But I don't know if they'll count them that way, because most other countries are not as insane as we are. This birthright citizenship thing was a phenomenon of the Western Hemisphere during the age of great expansion. We're just like, well, we got a bunch of people moving all over the place, conquering everything all the time. And so it kind of developed and was just loosely enforced. It's a developed world now, and now it's being exploited. And most other countries, like in the Eastern Hemisphere, don't have birthright citizenship by geographic region. You've got to have some blood connection and allegiance to the home state, because that makes sense. Now, and they're still being invaded anyways. Now, the children would risk deportation to countries they have never visited. And so we have to take the responsibility for their parents' criminality. We are now the country that bears the burden of their illegalities. Respondents' arguments about irreparable harm remain unconvincing. And this is a rapidly adopted executive order. And there wasn't any legislation, and there was no national debate. This is this judge substituting his judgment of a new government policy, highly questionable constitutionality, that would deny citizenship to thousands of people previously granted citizenship under a longstanding policy. He says it's irreparable harm because I don't like that it's going to happen. To the extent that the respondents challenge this, we're not going to address those arguments. A motion to dismiss is going to come later, and so I'll let that happen now. So this judge is just opening the window so that they can have as many babies come through the floodgates as possible before the courts may settle this. So the judge comes down, he says, these final factors favor me. I'm going to make sure that they only have to post a $1 bond, and they'll probably take that from SNAP funds or something and use that too for that. So the judge says, in conclusion, you are stopped. The petitioners initiated this litigation, and the Supreme Court issued a ruling. After convening a conference in a preliminary deference to the Supreme Court, we're going to stay this for 7 days. All right, so all this is going to be stayed for 7 days. Otherwise, Trump and everybody, you are stopped from prohibiting illegal alien babies from having birthright citizenship. And look, all these people, ACLU coming in, ACLU Immigrants' Rights Projects in New Hampshire and Maine and Massachusetts, and the Asian Law Caucus and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, all these like so-called American organizations, the American Civil Liberties Union, the National Association for African American, the National American Association of Colored People, right, is what that one is. All American, fighting for illegal aliens, representing them as a class action, using our own courts to exploit our own laws for the benefits of them. And mom of Barbara's going and just going to get some SNAP benefits too, okay? And you've seen some of them going out the checkout line at Costco with like 4 grocery carts on your dollar. You're welcome, America. Enjoy it. So thanks to these judges. Now, Trump, meanwhile, is still continuing forward. And his education department has now ended tuition for illegals at the Department of Education. This was an exclusive captured over from the Daily Caller explaining the DOE on Thursday revoked a Clinton-era rule that allowed illegal aliens to access taxpayer funds for technical and career schools. Clinton allowed illegals to access federal funds in violation of the law to be used towards career, technical, and adult education programs, according to Trump. The agency notified post-secondary education programs the rule will no longer be interpreted that way. Cue the lawsuits. Interpreted by the Clinton administration standards, saying that providers have obligations to verify the eligibility of the participants, saying post-secondary education programs funded by the federal government should benefit American citizens, not illegal aliens. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said. And so nice to see that is happening. Ed cited the executive order ending taxpayer subsidizations for illegal aliens, and that is a good development as well. Now, in the Senate, we had John Thune, the leader, the Senate Majority Leader, talking about these judges. He said on X, an activist judiciary like Judge LaPlante is a threat to justice, to individual liberty, and to the separation of powers. I look forward to working with POTUS and Chairman Chuck Grassley to confirm more outstanding judges during this Congress. Here was Senator John Thune.
Madam President, on Tuesday evening, I filed cloture on the nomination of Whitney Hermendorfer of Tennessee to be United States Circuit Judge for the Sixth Circuit, the first of President Trump's judicial nominees that we'll consider this month. I'm excited that the White House has started sending over judicial nominations, eager to get to floor confirmation of Trump's nominees.
We got Emil
Madam
Bowe
President,
and others.
one of the great achievements of President Trump's first term was the confirmation of some 234 judges to the federal bench. At the start of the first Trump administration, the President and Congress were faced with well over 100 openings in the judiciary, a daunting number, but an incredible opportunity to shape the federal bench. The administration got right to work on identifying good judicial candidates, and Leader McConnell determined that we were going to fill those slots and others that would open up. And not just fill them, of course, Madam President. The President and Leader McConnell, and then Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, were determined to fill them with the right kind of judges, judges who would faithfully interpret the law, not attempt to legislate from the bench. Our interest was in putting judges on the bench who would look at the law, the Constitution, and the facts of the case and rule based on those criteria and nothing else.
That'd be nice.
That might seem like an obvious goal for judicial nominations, Madam President, but unfortunately that's not always the case. In fact, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle frequently seem to prefer another kind of judge, the kind of judge who will rule in line with Democrats' policy preferences,
All right, I see the screen
even
froze.
when the law doesn't support them. You only have to look at Democrats' attempts to politicize and delegitimize the Supreme Court for daring to occasionally rule against Democrats' preferred outcomes to realize that Democrats aren't interested in judges who will rule according to the law. They're interested in judges who will rule according to the platform of the Democrat Party.
That's right, John. And hopefully the rest of your senators understand what is at stake, because we've got a lot of these judges, and you guys are in Congress, so you could put some pressure on the House of Representatives to impeach them and have a trial in the Senate. I know you're not going to remove them because you've got a bunch of hack Democrats in there too who love these judges, but you just put their name and photo right there in the Senate chambers, and we'll see what happens to the rest of them, because that would not be good for their egos, their auras, and they don't want to go down in record in history as an impeached and removed judge. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Absolutely insane and a maddening and infuriating decision from this judge. And even acknowledging the judge writing and explaining in his decision, Barbara needs her SNAP benefits for her babies, okay? And so just eat it, America. Stop being so xenophobic and bigoted. Barbara's babies need your food. 4 of them. So work harder and allow them to violate our laws and become citizens. All right, so that's one story. Now let's talk about Ryan Routh, the Trump assassin, and what's going on in Florida. Remember Judge Cannon? Well, we're back in her courtroom. The Trump assassin went wild in court today, fired his entire team. Now, the judge hasn't made it official yet, but you remember this judge, Judge Eileen Cannon. She was the same judge in Florida who handled the Trump classified documents case and Jack Smith and found he's not a real boy. It's Cannon. She's back. And this guy is Ryan Routh. You remember he was the second attempted Trump assassin, this guy here. All those weird connections to Ukraine and intelligence and weird stuff. Well, it turns out he's very unhappy with his lawyers, and today he fired them. Now, we don't know exactly what happened in court because Cannon kicked everybody out, but Caleb Park, shout out to Caleb, posted this over there. He's a Newsmax correspondent. Give him a follow at Caleb Park with an E at the end. Says, breaking update from inside the courtroom. Ryan Routh, the guy accused of trying to assassinate President Trump last year on the golf course, told Judge Eileen Cannon today, I'm firing my attorneys and I'm going to represent myself at trial. What? Cannon says, that's almost always a bad decision. Probably not a good idea to do that. Now, Cannon's not going to make a decision today. Trial's coming up September 8th, very soon. And it sounds like that is right on track. Now, Cannon also came down, and this is what happened in her minute entry from today's hearing. Here's what we got. Defendant Routh orally moved under oath to terminate his appointed counsel. Waive the right to appointed counsel. So I don't want a lawyer. I don't want you to give me anyone new. And exercise the right to self-representation. Court says we conducted an in-camera colloquy, meaning I kicked everybody out of here and I read this dude the riot act, right? I sat him down. It's a little colloquy here. It's like, listen, you're going to go to prison forever if you do this. Like, she had a talk with him and gave him and heard from the appointed counsel as well. Like, I heard from the defense team, like, Your Honor, irreconcilable differences. I don't know what. He hates us. I'm mad at us. Fine. Following adjournment, the court, so they had a talk. Following the adjournment, the court reconvened hearing in public format and made findings regarding effectiveness of appointed counsel. So come back and said, Maybe he's saying, Your Honor, they're being ineffective. She came back out and said, we've had a conversation. I'm not finding anything ineffective. Says, but even though there is nothing, I would imagine, I'm speculating, but I would say probably says the lawyers are doing a fine job, as they normally are. And Routh seems like he's crazy in a way, right? He's just nuts. And that happens a lot. Like, I represented one guy, I think I was his 8th lawyer. Yeah. So defendant Routh reaffirmed and then he fired us. Yeah. So defendant Routh reaffirmed desire to terminate representation and exercise right to self-representation. He disclaimed any need for further consultation with counsel. Watch this guy win. And indicated no additional request in connection with his motion. So she's like papering the file is what we're watching right here. Okay. Cannon's like, look, I said this. I did everything appropriately. He said multiple times. The court then conducted a full Ferretta hearing with Routh and took his oral motion under advisement. Okay. Read him like everything, explained everything that like, if you represent yourself, you can't come back and claim like your lawyer was an idiot or you were denied due process or that your rights were violated. Nothing, right? Like you understand. Without objection from Routh, counsel then submitted forensic competency review to the court for in-camera ex parte review via a sealed filing. All right. So then that means that Routh probably saw a handful of psychiatrists or psychologists, government appointed or court appointed people to do an assessment on him. Is he even competent to stand trial? And that was the next thing from the judge. Like, is this dude nuts? Talks to the lawyers. Is he crazy? No, we put him through competency. That's probably what the defense attorneys wanted to do, is say, actually, this guy's just insane. Like, he's guilty, but insane, right? So it's like a defense, and we're going to put him in rehabilitation. He's just nuts. He's not actually criminal because he's just crazy. And we put him through a competency hearing, and the attorneys want to do that for themselves too, like want to make sure they're not representing somebody who's nuts. And they put him through, and it sounds like they sent that into the judge. So here you go, judge. They said he's good. He's cleared. So she says, all right, I'll write a written order later. So this guy might be flying solo. Now, further, as discussed at the hearing, all current deadlines remain in effect, including Ryan Routh's response to the defendant's motion in limine, right? So the government, Trump and the DOJ, now, Trump's the one who was part of the attack, but now submitted this. Okay, here's a 21-page background in a motion in limine against Ryan Routh. And a motion in limine is to try to, limit or it's a preliminary motion that allows you to kind of tailor the outcome of the testimony and the evidence at trial. You're now going to be kind of putting some guardrails on where things are going and saying they can't talk about this. Here's why. They can't talk about that. This is why. And we don't want that stuff coming out in the middle of trial, right in front of all the jurors, like hashing that out in front of them. So the government filed a motion in limine, and they say this case arises out of the plan to assassinate Trump. Routh illegally purchased a military-grade SKS rifle, then on September 15th, in anticipation of Trump playing golf there, concealed himself at the 6th green of the golf club, loaded the weapons magazine with 20 rounds of ammo, drew one into the chamber, and positioned it to fire. Only the arrival of a Secret Service agent thwarted his plan and prompted his flight. And so he got charged with crimes, bunch of crimes, big criminal history. And so they're trying to minimize the disruptions here. Motions in limine, streamlined trials. We can work a lot of these things out. And Ryan Routh is going to have to respond to this, right? I don't want to spend a ton of time on it other than to show you that it exists, but he's going to have to respond to this. The court should exclude his writings other than those offered against him by the government. Say, Ryan, he wants to introduce some writings. He wants to introduce his autobiographies. He wants to introduce his nonfiction books. We can't allow him to do that. They're totally irrelevant. They also relate to different defenses. The judge has already foreclosed on this. He can't use those defenses. And we don't know anything that he wants to introduce, but his discovery includes at least 2 excerpts from his own book. And although some content in these books is inculpatory, meaning it might actually incriminate him, not exonerate him, we may or may not introduce those materials ourselves. Now, those materials include his self-published book, which is called Ukraine's Unwinnable War, in which he invites a foreign country to assassinate Trump. and an apparent dedication letter with which Routh left at the crime scene, which provides a list of his justifications for the attempted murder of the president. Now, unless the government wants to introduce those, Routh cannot, and you should not admit portions of his Dear World letter, or you should admit portions of this, rather, of his letter, where Routh confesses that he wanted and wants President Trump to be assassinated, saying, you're already familiar with this. And in that letter, Routh writes, in his letter, this was an assassination attempt on Trump, but I'm so sorry I failed you. I tried my best and I gave it all the gumption I could muster. It's now up to you to finish the job, and I will offer $150,000 to whomever can complete the job. They say that's what we want to admit. While the letter contains other inculpatory admissions, most of it is just an extended screed about the failings of Trump and his views on Ukraine and Iran and Taiwan. And so it's just not relevant. And now the government is entitled to introduce statements as admissions against a party opponent, and you should preclude him from bringing in third-party witnesses without showing why it's relevant. He's trying to justify the assassination attempt by introducing politics, but it's all just self-serving hearsay. He cannot introduce that stuff either. And so you should preclude him from saying, I'm a good dude, I've got good character. And you see how the pattern goes, right? So the list continues on. And Routh, now by himself, is going to have to respond to this. Like he's going to type a response to this and battle this out, look up all the case law, and end up in front of Judge Cannon and handle this. Well, it's going to be a disaster, okay, as you can imagine. John Shipley over there, writing for the DOJ, and now if Judge Cannon allows Ryan Routh to kick his attorneys off the case, they will be handling that solo. And where was the minute entry? Right there. Apologies for all the scrolling. But here's what Cannon continues to say. Okay, so now Ryan Routh has to respond by a certain time. And currently, though, pending the resolution of this motion, okay, we don't know if the judge is going to grant this or not, but you got to get a response due to us by July 22nd on the motion I just shared. Pending resolution of that motion, of Routh's motion to proceed pro se on his own alone without an attorney, and to avoid delay in the court's review, appointed counsel shall file a response to the motion. All right, so he's not going to have to respond to that one. So the current public defenders will have to dang it. If defendant Routh is permitted to proceed pro se, the court will consider any timely response filed by Routh and the motion and permit full argument on the motion at the upcoming hearing. Counsel shall expeditiously transmit a copy of this order to Routh. They were in court for 1 hour and 10 minutes. And so now we'll see what happens. I don't know if the judge is going to allow it. I mean, it sounds like she made a pretty good record and she's leaning towards it. She just got to double check some things. So he might be flying solo. Could it be one of the most interesting trials of all time? But that is one development. Now, we also had this other development on this that came across from Headline USA. Shout out to them. Headline USA and Ken Silva said that Ryan Routh was not acting alone. In fact, 2 other people have already been charged and convicted, taking guilty pleas for being a part of the plot. Ken Silva got the deets on this. Says we got 2 co-conspirators, one called Tina Brown and one called Ronnie J. Were both charged in March, but they already pled guilty. And so they're now going to probably be used as witnesses against Routh. And so they broke this and flagged the documents for us. And here is what it looks like. So this was the factual basis for a guilty plea, right? So Tina Brown, co-conspirator to Ryan Routh, which might be the first time you're ever hearing this name. First time I think I'm hearing this name. We're working with him? What? How so? Now comes the United States. This is the factual basis. So they pled guilty and they're just done. Okay, so what are you pleading guilty to? These facts. You agree with these facts? Yes. You sure? Yeah. Did you sign it? Yeah. And no, nothing to correct or addendums? Nope. Okay, good. So they agree. Now comes the United States, and these people will probably be witnesses in the trial against Routh that he might be representing himself on. Saying, all right, here's the factual basis for the plea. Beginning in or around late July 2024 and continuing through August, Tina Brown, called Cooper, and Ronnie J, called Oxendine, and Ryan Routh, these 2, agreed and conspired to sell and dispose of a firearm to a prohibited person. So just the firearm sales. Oxendine sold the firearm to Routh at the request of Cooper, who was Oxendine's employee at the time. Now, he can't have guns. He was convicted already of felony possession of a weapon of mass destruction and was sentenced to 60 months probation, subject to a term of imprisonment for 1 year, but didn't do that. So then in or about mid-July, Cooper asked Oxendine if he had any firearms. Hey, you got any guns I can sell to this Ryan guy? He's nuts. It's great. He's going to shoot Trump. Cooper sent a text message to Oxendine saying, yeah, Routh's going to be here in North Carolina on July 28th. Can you meet with him? Responded that he was at the beach, but he would call Cooper when he got back in town. So then Cooper specifically asked Oxendine, do you have an AK-47 for sale? He says, well, I got a similar one, Chinese, SKS. Cooper then requested that Oxendine bring the rifle to his place of business. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's close enough, and he'll like that. On August 2nd, Cooper called Oxendine, who confirmed he was at his place of business and he had a rifle with him. Cooper, who was at the time driving with her adult daughter, arranged to meet Routh at Oxendine and Son Roofing Company. Now, Oxendine was outside of the business when Cooper, her daughter, and Routh arrived. Oxendine asked Cooper why Routh was there. Who's this guy? Cooper explained that the rifle was actually for him. Not for me, it's for him. Oxendine, says, you want to buy it? Okay. And handed it to him. Routh paid Oxendine $350 in cash for the rifle and paid Cooper $100 in cash for arranging the sale. Now, on September 22nd, the FBI interviewed Oxendine in North Carolina. He advised he met Routh early in the mid-90s, and he and Routh both owned roofing companies and would occasionally cross paths at hardware supply stores. Now, they were not friends. However, Oxendine falsely told agents that Routh had pawned an SKS rifle to Oxendine in the early 1990s for about $300. Like, you're asking about the gun? Oh, yeah, it's actually his gun. Way before he was a felon. Oxendine told the agents that Cooper called him and requested to purchase an AK. Now, Oxendine did not want to sell his AK, but offered to sell Cooper an SKS. He then explained to Cooper that an SKS rifle shot the same round as the AK-47 and told agents he believed Cooper was going to give the firearm to her grandson. So then Oxendine recounted that Cooper and Routh arrived at his place of business, 10 a.m. August 2nd. Oxendine was surprised to see Routh. So, this guy knows him from roofing. Oxendine had not spoken to Routh in approximately 10 years. Asked Cooper, what's he doing here? Cooper explained the firearm's for him, not for Cooper. Oxendine nevertheless agreed to the sale. Asked Cooper, why didn't you tell me the firearm was for Routh? She said, well, I thought that you'd have an issue with Routh being the recipient of the firearm. So, man, she screwed him big time, huh? Oxendine advised the agents that he learned of Routh's September assassination attempt from his sister. He explained that he contacted Cooper and told her, you realize that dude just shot at the president, you psycho? Oxendine said that Cooper, she's like, I know, he missed. Oxendine said that Cooper told him that she was going to delete all her text messages relating to Routh. I'm deleting everything. Oxendine also told interviewing agents that Cooper had instructed him in text messages to deny any knowledge and refuse to cooperate with the FBI. It's good advice, generally. During Oxendine's interviews, agents admonished him about the importance of telling the truth, at which point Oxendine admitted he lied and received a rifle from Routh. And Oxendine further admitted he told the FBI in an attempt to minimize his role to purchase the rifle, right? So they cracked him, which is why you don't lie or talk. Now, on September 22nd, agents with the FBI interviewed Cooper in Greensboro. Cooper advised, she starts talking, that she had known Routh since 1999 and had been an employee at his roofing company. Law enforcement arrested Routh, recovered the rifle when he was spotted and fleeing. Cooper knew that Routh had been charged with multiple felonies in 2002 after he threatened to blow up a police department. Additionally, Cooper believed that he pleaded guilty to 5 felony charges in 2022. She didn't know if he served any time, though, but she knew he was a felon. Cooper told agents that in mid-July, Routh called her and said that he would be returning to Greensboro in 10 days. Got to buy a firearm for my son. We need protection here. Cooper said, oh, well, how about you go to a pawn shop? Routh said, I can't buy it under my true name. I'm a felon. They're not going to sell it to me. Cooper said, oh, that's right. Well, I'll help you get one. So Cooper then next reached out to Oxendine, her boss, former, Says, asked if he had any firearms. Cooper told Oxendine she wanted to purchase a firearm for Routh, this is her story, who intended to give the firearm to her son. Oxendine told Cooper that he was at the beach and did not have any for sale. Then on July 27th, Routh called Cooper to discuss the type of firearm. Routh said he wanted a long distance, similar to an AK, for shooting at the president. Cooper thought that this request was odd, but says, okay, but I might be able to find an equivalent firearm, like an SKS. You don't want a handgun for protection? Like, why do you need a sniper rifle kind of a thing? Is that what you're looking for? During the conversation, Routh cautioned Cooper to be careful about what she sent via text message and explained that Routh's wife may be able to view their messages. My wife might be thinking I'm cheating on you, but I just want a gun. Following this conversation, Cooper reached out to Oxendine again and asked if he had an AK-47 for sale. During the conversation, they agreed. Okay, I got an SKS, said he'll bring it to our business. Then on July 31st, Routh called Cooper and asked about the firearm. Cooper told him that she had not found an AK, but got the SKS, got it. Cooper stated on August 2nd, she got a call from Routh, who asked where she was. Cooper told Routh running errands. Cooper then called Oxendine, who confirmed got the gun at the business. Then we met Routh there. He was outside the business when we got there. They asked why Routh was there, and she said the rifle was for him. Then she confirmed, says much the same, $350 and $100 for brokering the sale. Okay, so their stories match. During the interview, Cooper allowed agents to review the contents of her cell phone. Cooper told them she deleted the contents of her phone after she learned about the assassination, and she further explained she deleted the content to avoid any involvement with the assassination attempt. Yeah. Now, a review of the device confirmed she deleted her call logs and her messages. And in her Facebook Messenger, agents saw correspondence between Cooper and Routh from January 14th to January 1, all the way from 2014 to 2022. Long time. During the interview, Cooper provided multiple inconsistent stories to agents about the firearm transfer. Agents advised Cooper of the consequences for lying to federal agents. Cooper then admitted, I am lying to you for fear of criminal prosecution in an assassination attempt. She said that she was guilty of assisting Routh, whom she knew was a prohibited person in acquiring a firearm. Like, I didn't know he was going to shoot Trump is probably what she's saying, but I did know he shouldn't have had a gun. Agents asked Cooper if she had instructed any other person involving the firearms transactions to lie to the FBI or to mislead us. On multiple occasions, she denied this. Nope, just us. No, I'm not. Nobody else is involved. Agents then showed Cooper text messages that she sent to Oxendine on September 19th that were taken from his phone. Here's a picture of his phone, which is busted up. Golly. Says, FBI came by the shop, he says to Tina Cooper. She says, do not volunteer any information. Nothing happened. Feeling them see where they're coming from. Do not admit to anything. There is no proof if they check your record. Then they know how many guns you have bought this year. I know what I'm doing. I do not know crap. And you do not know anything about what happened. You do not either. Do not open and admit nothing. There's no proof other than your text messages saying that you're involved in this cover up right now. So, oops. So then she says, do you remember these messages? After reviewing the messages, she said, oh yeah, I forgot. I did want him to prevent him from cooperating with you. Thanks for busting me though. So call her out. They took guilty pleas, so they're both done. And now this case is marching forward. So we'll see what Judge Cannon ultimately does and whether she allows this guy to represent himself or not. But in the meantime, we're asking about the Secret Service, who in this incident was great. They captured him, caught him before the bullets went off and pierced Trump's head, and captured him later down the line. That didn't happen, though, in the Butler incident. And so now the Secret Service has suspended 6 agents over Trump's assassination attempt, saying that the announcement coincides with the 1-year anniversary of what happened in Butler. And I guess not surprised, but suspended? He got shot in the head. The Secret Service said on Thursday it was suspending 6 agents involved. 10 days to 42 days without pay. Said in a statement that came days before the 1-year anniversary. So it's like, wow, you're either letting it happen on purpose or you're making it happen on purpose, and you're just going to get a 14-day suspension. Probably go down to the Bahamas with Fannie Willis. A young junior agent who was on Trump's personal detail got the longest suspension. The agent is also the only member of Trump's personal detail to get a suspension. The agency has come under intense scrutiny since Thomas Matthew Crooks, whose body was torched within like 10 days, was allowed to crawl up onto a roof where people in the crowds are screaming, and all of the law enforcement and Secret Service agents just miss it and allow him to get up there. One of the most insane times. Lawmakers have called for agency leaders to hold those responsible for operational failures, and they did. They just, a little bit of a suspension here. You deserve it. Take some time off. Been a lot of investigation coming your way. So, of course, we also know other malicious actors in our government exist, including Comey and Brennan and more. And our friend Senator John Kennedy is explaining that Comey and Brennan are just the worst.
What do you mean by protecting the president, Harris?
It says the threat climate against him has never been higher than what it is now.
I think that's true. I think that's absolutely true. We have a number of people in America. They're crazy. I mean, they take politics so seriously that if you disagree with them, you're not just wrong, you're in error, you're a bad person. And presidents are very visible. I know they have good protection, but they've got to be protected every moment. I really regret that we live in a climate like we live in. But I can tell you two people who contributed to that climate. You've already mentioned their names, James Comey and Mr. Brennan.
That's right.
Well, look, when we talk about that seashell on the seashore messaging, 8647, and now open criminal investigations to the two men we're talking about now, Comey and Brennan, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I know Mr. Comey and I know Mr. Brennan. Neither one of them, in my opinion, should attempt more than 6 of the 10 commandments. They're not very nice people.
No.
They're not ethical people. I know people who have worked with them closely. And if you talk to people who've worked with them closely, those people will tell you that they're about as popular as male pattern baldness. What's scary about both of them is that they think that they're competent. They're not. I would hire the guy who salts the fries at McDonald's before I would hire either one of them, but they think they're competent. They think they're smarter and more virtuous than the rest of us. And they acted on their political beliefs. Brennan, for example, Mr. Brennan was one of the ones who told the American people that the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't real, that it was Russian disinformation. They're just not honest people. And if they broke the law, they should be held accountable. They're also just, they're like so many in Washington, Harris. They're so arrogant. Lyndon Johnson used to have an expression. He'd say, that guy's so arrogant, he could strut sitting down. Well, that's the way Mr. Comey and Mr. Brennan are. Those two have done more to destroy the American people's confidence in the FBI and national intelligence than any two people I can think of.
Well, I would like you speak up for the guy who salts the fries at McDonald's. He is given back to society in a way that we all can appreciate. What you described, those men definitely are not doing that and have not done that.
They are definitely not salting those fries, man, and they are not good dudes. And so thank you to John Kennedy for explaining that. And we'll keep our eye on this Ryan Routh situation. We'll see what Judge Cannon does. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, we got one more update, my friends, and then it will be time to hear from you. And here's the latest from the EPA. Here's the story. Geo-engineering, contrails, and solar manipulations, weather modification, and more. Big conversation and topic of concern now that we've got floods happening all across the country. And Lee Zeldin, Trump's EPA secretary, came out and said, listen, we're going to give you total transparency on all this weather modification stuff. The Trump EPA is committed to total transparency. And I tasked my team at the EPA to compile everything we know about contrails and geoengineering to release to you now publicly. I want you to know everything I know about these topics without any exception at all. So they released a report. And here is what it says. We'll watch the video in a second, but here's the background. It says the EPA released a new online resource today, created new online resources to communicate everything the agency knows about the latest science about this stuff in total transparency. It talks about contrails, explains the science, and the new website addresses head-on various different claims about occurrences that are happening in the skies. The resource delves into the current state of the science surrounding geoengineering and more. And if you go to the website, here is what you'll find. It looks just like this. There's a frequently asked questions page. And some of the questions are interesting. Does solar geoengineering cool the Earth? Has this ever actually happened? And we want to parse through the language. Large-scale solar geoengineering, which is different than local weather modification, okay? So here, solar geoengineering is saying, no, we're definitely not doing that. So it's like a planetary envelopment. Nope. Not engaged in any form of outdoor solar engineering testing at all. Small-scale experiments and more. As of July, the EPA is aware of only one private sector actor, which is called Make Sunsets, that has actively deployed anything like this. And while there are a few private actors focused on developing different engineering technologies, the amount of material that has been intentionally released into the atmosphere is very small. Now, other entities, Florida passed a law, said you can't manipulate the weather. But also other states are regulating this. Texas, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Tennessee passed a similar law. And there are no international regulations, no international frameworks for this. And how is this different from weather modification? Okay, so the government says we're not doing solar modification, but weather modification, yeah. The most common example is cloud seeding. Involves introducing artificial particles into clouds to increase rain or modify local weather patterns. The main difference between weather mod and solar geoengineering is that modification is intended to have local, short-term effects, whereas solar geoengineering is going to have persistent global effects, like in the Matrix. Despite when they took out the sun, remember? Despite the different intended impacts, there can be overlap between these two definitions. And unlike solar geoengineering, the U.S. federal government and various state governments have historically been involved in weather modification. They have been doing it, mainly through cloud seeding activities. In fact, scientists at the General Electric Lab first demonstrated the basis of cloud seeding in the 1940s. After this discovery, the U.S. federal government spent the following decade supporting cloud seeding until funding was cut in the 80s. Here are several modification programs that have long been discontinued. So they're not doing these anymore, but we had them. Project Cirrus. GE Labs, the Naval Research Lab, Army Signal Corps used Air Force aircraft to conduct hurricane cloud seeding experiments with dry ice. Project had 2 military aircraft dump dry ice into a hurricane and results inconclusive. There was also Operation Popeye, a classified military weather modification program carried out during Vietnam that attempted to extend the monsoon season to disrupt supply routes in North Vietnam and Laos. Yeah. And some people saying, well, I wonder if you could do that, like to take out a group of senators' daughters at a camp, something like that. Project Storm Fury. Led by the NOA and the Navy, this program sought to modify hurricane strength through seeding with silver iodide to reduce the most destructive wind speeds. Current science says there's no technology that can modify hurricanes. It would be wild if you could. So today, according to the report, cloud seeding activities in the U.S. are primarily funded at the state and local level. As of July 2024, cloud seeding programs were active in 9 states: Cali, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, North Dakota, Texas, Utah, and Wyoming. Depending on the state, These programs have either been directly supported by state funds, indirectly by state grants and local agencies, or by local revenue and sponsors. Historically, Kansas, South Dakota also had them. Ongoing research is happening in Arizona and Montana. Like, we've talked about that in Arizona. Like, we could use some water here. This is a desert. But is it ethical? Are you stealing other people's water? Or are you creating it and seeding it out of this giant reservoir that's already in the sky? While NOAA does not regulate weather modification activities, it does track them. You have to report what you're doing, and there are consequences to weather modification and cloud seeding. In fact, for instance, some studies have focused on the extent to which precipitation could increase or decrease outside of the intended area. There are some public health and environmental concerns as well. Yeah, blasting silver iodide into the sky, you think that's good? While silver iodide is nearly insoluble, when it dissolves, it releases a small number of silver ions, which if released at high enough levels, could harm beneficial bacteria in the environment and water sources. And contrails, they say, again, are nothing. It's just altitude condensation. Saying jet aircraft forms contrails under these conditions. The federal government is not aware of there ever being a contrail intentionally formed for geoengineering or weather modification. But what if it's just to poison the populace? Having additional concerns, have any additional concerns about solar radiation modification happened? And they say, yeah, some, but we're looking into it. So that's the latest from the EPA. And Lee Zeldin came out. He released this video. And let's check out what Lee
Concerned
had
Americans
to say.
have urgent and important questions about geoengineering and contrails. The American public deserves and expects.
All right, sorry. I don't know why this is so zoomed in. But maybe that's why. Here we go.
Concerned Americans have urgent and important questions about geoengineering.
Your boy's having a tough time on this
and
one.
contrails. The American public deserves and expects honesty and transparency from their government when seeking answers. But for years, people who asked questions in good faith were dismissed, even vilified by the media and their own government. That era is over. The Trump EPA is committed to total transparency. As a result, I tasked my team at EPA to compile a list of everything we know about contrails and geoengineering for the purpose of releasing it to you now publicly. In other words, I want you to know everything I know about these topics and without any exception. Instead of simply dismissing these questions and concerns as baseless conspiracies, we're meeting them head on. We did the legwork, looked at the science, consulted agency experts, and pulled in relevant outside information to put these online resources together. Everything we know about contrails to solar geoengineering will be in there. That means anyone who reads through this information will know as much about these topics as I do as EPA administrator.
All right, well, I don't know how much is actually in there. I mean, the website is pretty sparse, to be honest with you. Like, this is what they've got over there. So you've got environmental topics, I guess. Maybe there's a lot more here. Cancer. Okay, so yeah, here, I guess this is all a part of it. No, I think that's just standard EPA stuff. So anyways, so they're releasing stuff and telling us what's going up on up in the skies. And I think the takeaway is that they're admitting that there's a lot of it actually going on, and probably more of it will be happening as well. So we appreciate the transparency. Thank you, Lee Zeldin, for the drop. All right, my friends, what a beautiful day and a beautiful stream it has been. If you're just joining us, quick recap on what we talked about. We had this class action certification and nationwide injunction, again, come down out of New Hampshire from this judge named Joseph Norman LaPlante. And he is, again, assuming the presidency now, and saying, actually, the will of the people doesn't matter a bit. We also talked about Ryan Routh, the second attempted Trump assassin who was in court today, fired his defense team, and Judge Cannon may accept that. He's going to have to get a lot of work done if that is the case between now and September when the trial occurs. We saw Secret Service agents got suspended. Nobody's fired for that. and John Kennedy came out with a nice exchange. We also got an update from the EPA on weather modification. And of course, now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. And we appreciate you being here. And thanks for joining us today. And thanks for supporting our work. Thanks for subscribing if you haven't already done that. And for being a part of what we do here. We're grateful for you. Let's see what we got going on. Donut, thank you for clipping for us on the day. We got Membos coming in. Amazing. Clark, thank you for that. And Mock Schnell. We got a bunch of Membos. Oh, we're excited about that. And we got some memes. It's going to be a great day. Hey, we got this meme here. It says, hold on, baby. It's almost there. It's almost Friday. Coming up soon. Thank you for that. What's up, Ravicus? Hey, Rob, you should look at HARP, the High Frequency Active Oral Research Program, Saturday, June 14th in Gouveia, Alaska. HARP Open House. Sounds like a good one, man. That sounds like a rabbit hole for the ages. Hey, what's going on, Rob? If this is allowed, then a nationwide abortion ban can now be done by conservative federal judges. Great question. Yeah, and Bonnie. Oh, can we now file a class action lawsuit on behalf of unborn babies to keep them from being murdered? Well, I don't think they care about American citizen babies. They don't want American babies. They just want foreign invader babies. So judge would say, oh, no. No, now they're humans. But you can still abort your citizens. So just keep killing your babies. But we just want illegal babies to be here because we want to displace your country. Thank you, Bonnie. What's up, Chubby? Okay, so if unborn illegals can be a class and sue the government, can we, the 80 million citizens who voted for Trump, get certified as a class and sue the entirety of the judicial branch, and more specifically SCOTUS, for undermining our right to vote? I know the answer is no, but I think the question itself makes the point. You're right, Chubby. I was just going to say, I hear my mom in the back of my head saying, 2 wrongs don't make a right, Rob. You know, like, this judge is acting out of political bias and just weaponized judicial philosophy. So you'd have to find a judge who would, do the same thing, and hopefully you wouldn't, but I do get the point. It's a great comment. Thank you, Chubby. Mock Schnell. So, Rob, cannot the writ of mandamus be filed like SCOTUS ruled last week? Yeah, right. I think they did say there should be, and I think Alito would certainly appreciate that too, saying you can kind of bypass the normal procedures and just go right to the Supreme Court, which would mean SCOTUS would have to come and do the clarification thing. Yeah, I think the difference would be that would happen more quickly, right? Be a faster process rather than going up through the traditional appellate process. Thank you, Mock Schnell. What's up, Pinochet? How does an unborn child have a right to citizenship but not a right to life in, say, Massachusetts? Because they're an illegal alien baby and they're better than American babies. Mizzy M, thanks for all the updates. Real news every day. Thank you, Mizzy M. We try to bring we try. Thank you, Mizzy M, for the nice compliment. Ravicus, look at Michigan yesterday. It's a Facebook reel, and someone is sharing this over on Facebook. Looks like Michigan. They're all dressed in black, roaming around, screaming for Sharia law. Steel Manning, how do illegals have standing in this case? So, I don't know. I mean, we haven't seen that happen yet, but basically they're being certified as a class, right? That's the standing. Like, it's a class of people. And the judge has found that there's going to be injuries to these people who are in the United States, and they're entitled to some process. And the judge found there will be irreparable harm to them since they're residents here, essentially. It's based on their residency and the fact that they're now a part of this class. And so that's really the point of contention. It's like, how can you validate them as an entity that is legitimate? Trump is saying you can't. You have to go through this class process. The judge just basically did it. And we read through that earlier. So that's his justification for doing what he's doing, is certifying a class. It's the only way he can do it. This old guy. Okay, so let me set this straight. Get this straight. Babies born 9 months after February 20th are in or out of the class? In. Yeah, I think any babies, born after the executive order are in the class. The date of the conception doesn't figure in who's in the class, not that we heard, because I don't see how you can qualify as a member of the class if you didn't even exist when the class was determined. It seems we need 365 class certifications per year to cover everyone. Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. Those pupusas were being made in March. So that's after the executive order. Yeah, versus the judge didn't even consider it at all because he wants as many babies to come in as quickly as possible, at least that we covered here. We didn't read the full opinion. We fast forwarded through a lot. Maybe it's in there somewhere, but all babies. They want as many babies as possible from illegals. Hey, Ravicus says, this is interesting. It makes you wonder. Lots of flooding happening in a lot of these states, Texas, North Carolina, New Mexico. Why all this additional flooding? What's happening? Thank you, Ravicus, for that. We got this one from Linda Walling. What's up, Linda? Thank you for the dono. We appreciate you being here and sending in this lovely heart-eyed pair. We appreciate it. Clark Blount, should be retroactive. Yeah, I think that at this point, yeah. I mean, if you're somebody who's here, especially waving foreign flags around and your parents were illegal, yeah, maybe there's a possibility on that. What's up, Jason on Blast? Do you think that illegal aliens could be the catalyst for a form of civil war? You arguably might be in it right now. I don't know that it's a civil war like it's America versus America. I think most of America is pretty sick of the illegals, but it actually might just be like a soft proxy war that's happening right now. I mean, when you think about all of the battles between the cartels and the military and the battle for the border, like the border was wide open. They had that border open. It was not our border. It was their border. They were coming across at will. They were moving drugs and contraband at will. It was their border. They were in charge. We just reclaimed our own border, and now it's zero. So that was kind of, I think, a war. I think there's basically a soft war going on. I don't know that we're going to declare war against Mexico or that we're going to have the division here, but yeah, it's precarious, and they're talking about consequences for their land being stolen from them. Like, they're operating as an invasionary and predatory force. That's what waving the flags are and obstructing federal agents from deporting their soldiers out of the country is. And until our side wakes up and realizes that, we're operating at different mindsets, and it's not good for our side. Clark Blount, I really like Elon's idea of a third party. I wish it was grassroots, but the two slime party must be trashed, from Clark Blount. Yeah, Clark, I think a lot of people are interested in the idea. I think, do you still like the idea if it results in a Democrat president? Would you still like the idea of it? That's the question. Like, I think that's the real risk. And the question, of course, is where does the Republican Party go after President Trump? Does it stick with MAGA? Do we have this nice lineage of Vance and Rubio and, some good people there? Or does it revert back to the mainstream Republican Party, which is like the Bushies and the Romneys and the McConnells and the Grahams? Because if it is, then the third party is going to look a lot more attractive. But if the third party results in President Jasmine Crockett, it's not good. Mock Schnell, thank you, Mock Schnell, for bringing in 50 membos. Man, let's welcome them in. Mock Schnell, thanks for this. C. Warren, what's up? Florida Patriot, Preamble USA. We got Big D is here. America First, Nathan Danes. What's up, JK? Gizmo, Julia Arnold, Joan the Homesteader. What's up, George A? Sam E, Matt Man, Ryan Vintage, Danny S is here. We got It's Me, B, G and K. I am Aaron's infected toe. Get that checked out. Stephen Louder, James Willis, Henry G, Frank. We got Jimmy B, Crafty, William M, Chance L. What's up, Chris C, Patrick, Chris S. We got many more. Miasma, SAE. What's up, Debbie F? We got Deep Surface, Wrestler Town, Desert Quill, Latin American Cryptos in the house, Pasty Gangsta, Ryan Hork, Spud Jew, Super Iron Bob, Warrior Heart, Alan Roberson. What's up, Pink Husky, Ernwin, Lauren W, Carrie H, The White Knuckler, Unreal Hands, and Sama Scraps, all gifted membos, courtesy of Mock Schnell. Thank you, Mock Schnell, for doing that. Welcome, new membo friends. And Pinochet says, props to the DOJ prosecutor for correctly classifying the SKS rifle as military grade. And they didn't call it assault weapon. It's insulting, as all weapons can assault when used improperly. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, and I saw some other bones of contention with the SKS, though. People were saying it doesn't use the same rounds. I saw somebody said that. Clark Blount, what's up? Clark Blount, baby, in the house. Thank you, Clark, for bringing in 50 new membos. Clark, you rock. Look who's coming in. Raf L. Tall Corpsicle is here. Scooter, what's up, Rex Turbo? Timothy F. We got Hahaima Decoy. Mike Davis, what's up, Cat McC? Dirge, Chris Zerk is here. Old School, Dark Paradox, is here. We got Irene Abbott, Mahalo Man, Jesus Freak, Ikimbo, Augustus Tiberius, Dimitri, Bamala, Pink Wings, Sane Millennial. We got Stefan Siltberg, Calbo Dave, Dissident Porcupine, 300 Yard Wink, Under the Surface Cell, Kathy Widener, Jesse Padziora, Karen Bush, Laura Linton, J Dubs, what's up, Narva? My Bet, Child of God, Ray Neptune, Sunshine McLeod, Jason W. We got Dwayne, Tom, Brian, Matthew, Jerry, Shirley, Brian, Musically Untrained, RML, and Evan S. Gifted membos courtesy of Clark Blount. Clark, thank you for doing that, man, and welcome all new membos. We're going to have a great members only stream in a minute. Calvin Johnson, what's up, Calvin? Thank you for becoming a membo, signing up, supporting us. We're grateful for you. Swap Part, 5 membos coming in from Swap Part. Cloud99 is here. Bambi Lopez. Ashley shows up. What's up, Sean Hayward? And Johnny Girl 609, gifted membos. Swap Part, thank you for doing that. And for being a membo yourself. And JDWG became a supporter. What's up, J-Dog? J-Dog 209. Thanks for joining up, my friend. Grab the morning stream, 2 new membos. It was a good one. Pinochet's Helicopter Tour says, okay, here's a question. Is it allowed or common for a judge to confer or seek advice for matters like this? This isn't a sovereign citizen running into a Christmas parade. Do we assume it happens with a case so big? Yeah, I think judges do. Yeah, judges do seek advice a lot. And you might be talking about canon and taking this decision under advisement. But yeah, judges do. I think a lot of judges probably just follow orders too. They just go talk to their superior, handle it this way. Okay, fine. And they just go do it. And I think I've shared the story with you before about, like, I saw one judge who was in a text message group who was like doing this up on the bench. And I like stood up and I'm like, oh, he's on his phone. And then I asked him about it. He's like, I have a text group with other judges and I'm just waiting for an answer. And I said, oh, okay. So that's going to be a no as soon as that comes back. All right, what's up? King of Biltong says, Premium Angus, baby, Wagyu. Get it at BiltongUSA.com. Use code Robert. You'll save 10% off and go load up on high protein, no additives, authentic, handcrafted meat at BiltongUSA.com. Thanks, King of Biltong, for the dono. You get your Biltong. Zutral. It has been a long time, my friend. Long time no chat indeed. Says, go, Rob, go. Here's a little something to say hello and thank you for reading my comments if you're able to get to them. Keep up the great work. We appreciate you. Thank you, Zutral. It's good to see you. Welcome back. Nice to have you. Don't ever leave again. George Garbanzo. For weather modification, you need to look up HARP arrays. They are used to create lows in the atmosphere to change how air flows and can change the track of hurricanes and tropical storms. Yeah, and I've heard that, and HARP, I've heard of HARP, but there's also the other things in the ice in the Antarctic, right? Where they've got like these things that they're shooting like ionosphere stuff into the stratosphere or whatever. Yeah, it's why nobody can go to Antarctica. Thank you, George, for that. HARP, I'll have to look into it. Spuds, remember the famous saying by the British Navy, rule the seas, rule the world. Well, with the American military, it's rule the weather, rule the future. Yeah, or rule space, rule the future, right? What's even above that? How do you control the weather? You control space. There's going to be a race for that right now. Clark Blount, be sure to wear your masks, people. You don't want to catch the Democrat virus, which is the woke mind virus that can infect your brain. I don't know if masks will help or not. You need mental fortifications against the onslaught that is being perpetrated against us by big food, by big media, by big politics. Thank you, Clark. We appreciate you. HPG KMC says, if Birthright citizenship order is for future unborn babies, how can they possibly ever have standing? So they're basically imputing it. Well, some of them are actually born, right? Like, so one of them is born. The fourth baby is not born, but mom is like pregnant, I think, right? Is that whatever that one was? But the judge is saying that they're a class action of people who are going to have this. They have this interest in having SNAP benefits for their babies, and that's a harm for them. And so the judge said that's enough standing, and they all are certified as a class because there's a harm that's going to happen to a person with a baby. Knox. Hey, happy Thursday, all. HARP in Alaska has been doing weather modification for decades. When is that open house? I think we saw that up here. Yeah, you going up there? Gonna go check it out? When is the open house? June 14th. 4 days. Go up there and learn how to modify the weather? Interesting. Yeah, what's going on? Thank you for that, Knox. Hey, Michael Stetson. Okay, to quote Russell from the Cosby Kids, no class. I saw Cosby just had his birthday. He's out of custody. He's a free man. Wes Downer, could you explain the writ of mandamus thing again? Although I'm Catholic, I don't speak Latin. So the Supreme Court, you have a process in order to get to the Supreme Court. Like this, you can't just go to the Supreme Court and file a complaint like you could in certain jurisdictions. They've got original jurisdiction over certain things. They've got appellate jurisdiction over most other things. And so most of the time you just go through them through the appellate process. I think it was the CASA decision, the Supreme Court came back down and said, actually, like if we're running into these nationwide injunctions, when they slammed that, they didn't actually reach the merits of the birthright citizenship issue in the CASA case, but they did say that if there is a stop on the executive branch, essentially, that another avenue exists outside of the appellate process, which would just be to go to the Supreme Court in the form of a petition for a writ of mandamus, saying that we think this is what the law is. We're asking you to order this to happen, which is a different mechanism than an appellate process. So it's like a much more faster kind of bypass to get the Supreme Court to act on something rather than going through the standard appellate process. So in other words, they were giving the executive administration like this safety valve, like, hey, if you're getting hit with these injunctions or whatever, like you always have this other mechanism and you can come to us and we'll look at it, kind of a thing. So yeah, and Wes, I saw an article about your company today. Wes Downer, congratulations. Wes Downer had a great deal go through today with the DOD, rare earth minerals. I read an article about it, came across my feed. I'm like, oh, dang, that dude is in our community. Wes Downer, congrats on a huge day. Like, bought like 15% of his company. Is amazing. Clark Blount, neither have any footing, Rob. So no, it doesn't worry me. You're not worried about Jasmine Crockett? What about AOC? What about some of these other people? Yeah, Clark. I don't know. All right. Well, I would just like to see the MAGA populist momentum carry forward rather than having to abandon ship and go to a new party that has no infrastructure and nothing there. But it is possibly going to be a good benefit to have that option depending on how things go. Fred Petamonte says, okay, the SKS is 7.62 by 3.9 millimeters, same as the AK-47, but it's semi, it's not auto. Okay, so I was right. All right, well, Fred's saying whoever said the other thing is just wrong, I guess. All right, so my friends, thank you for those amazing donos. Thank you for sending those in and for being so supportive. Welcome to our new membos. Thank you, Mock Schnell and Clark, for bringing in amazing new membos. And of course, new membos, stick around because we're going to have our members-only after party coming up like right now. But before we do, let's see what's up on X. If we're live on X, I think we are. Got a couple comments over here. Hey, what's going on? Mini Tika. Fred says, do the math. The average SNAP benefit for three kids in a single household is $574 per month per child. So she's got 4 of them. So she's getting about 2 Gs, over 2 Gs a month, courtesy of the American taxpayer. Hey, David, sitting in Lagos, Nigeria, wishing I had better Wi-Fi. All right, my friends. Good to see you, David. Thanks for being here. Shout out to our friends in Nigeria watching the show. That's amazing. You're in Nigeria watching this show? That's cool. Thank you for doing that and saying what's up. Darby Shaw, Ted Bundy defended himself. So yes, Ryan, have at it. Ryan Routh defending himself over in court. And of course, that's going to be fun. Hey, what the heck is this? Hey, Jigum, thanks for focusing on the positive and doing your best to help find the silver lining. Tough times help us stay hopeful and resilient in tough times. I'm not implying that you're blind to the dark. You just have a knack for knowing the proper... What the heck is going on here? What the heck? I was going to say that's a real photo, but I don't even know what to say. I'm just like speechless, actually. That's just it's like way too fabulous for even my brain to process. Let me finish reading. You just have a knack for knowing the proper time to put the glasses on and when to take them off. All right. So this morning we were talking about rose-colored glasses. Okay, it took me a minute. Okay, rose-colored glasses. We talked about it this morning. And that's a good look, actually. I mean, it looks like I work out. That's pretty good. Looks like a pretty good look. Is that from a real photo? Like, did I ever flex? I don't think I've ever flexed on camera, have I? Because I know you'll lose half your followers immediately because nobody wants to see that crap. Anyways, thank you, Jigam. Super funny meme. And this morning, the point is, we were talking about rose-colored glasses and how, what has the Epstein saga done to our lenses in how we view the administration? Has it tainted the lens? Has it, rather than having rose-colored glasses, is it kind of like dookie-colored glasses when you look at Cash or Dan or Pam or Trump? So we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to remember that we've got a lot of game left ahead. Clark Blount says, AOC and Crockett are a joke. So was Kamala Harris. And she was like a hair away from the presidency. So the Democrats know no bounds, man. That's what makes me nervous about it. Like, you just get little Jasmine Crockett coming up. All right, so my friends, thank you for the donos. Jigam, thank you for the meme. You have to process that for a while. Maybe get a therapist. But it's going to be a great after party. So come and join us on the after party. And I've got some news on the schedule tomorrow. So your boy's going to be out of pocket. We're traveling tomorrow. We're taking Mama up to the Grand Canyon. I have never been to the Grand Canyon my whole life. Lived in Arizona my whole life, never been. My mom, never been to the Grand Canyon. So it was her birthday last weekend, so we're going to go up to the Grand Canyon tomorrow. We've got this whole little adventure planned. And so we're not going to have live streams tomorrow or Saturday. Probably, maybe Saturday, because we'll be up there at the location. But I'm planning on some walk and talks, okay? So some hike and talks. Going to be some great footage up there, some great scenery. And so we'll get together tomorrow in some shape, some fashion, way, shape, or form. But the schedule will be off tomorrow, so I'm just letting you know right now. So I will miss you on our regular schedule, but we'll be recording a bunch. I got a GoPro and should be able to film some stuff. And it's going to be great. So we're actually doing like this whole little excursion thing. And Joey's coming too, my bro Joe. So he's coming. And we're taking a train up to the Grand Canyon. We're going to stay like right in this little town and then take the train back. And it's going to be a ton of fun. So that's happening tomorrow. We're going to celebrate Mama G, but your boy will be out of pocket. I absolutely hate missing our regular scheduled shows, but we'll make sure we're posting some stuff and showing you what's going on so you can come join us at the Grand Canyon in Arizona. So it should be a lot of fun. Should have some great footage and more. Old lady. My son's condition relapsed. Trying new medications tomorrow. Appreciate the prayers. Old lady, I'm sorry to hear that. Prayers for your boy. I hope that the new medications help. I'm sorry that you've had this temporary backslide. Hopefully we've learned some things from this and we can now know that doesn't work. And then we can get progress, much more progress on the next one. Old lady, prayers out for your boy. Prayers up for him and for you and your fam. And thanks for saying that. So, yeah, and thanks for, in the Grand Canyon, I'm excited about it. I've not been, and it's been like, I drive by it all the time. I've been in Arizona my whole life. I'm almost 40 years old. Never been to the Grand Canyon. Neither is my mom, actually. So it's going to be a fun experience. And I don't know if Joey has or not, but it should be fun. And they're going to do like a, like a shootout. There's going to be like a little shootout, bang, bang, bang thing going on. So it's going to be fun for Joey and for me. I'm more excited about that than anything. Like, there's going to be a shootout? What time? Perfect. Do I need tickets? Can't wait. Anyways, so it's going to be cool and it's going to be fun, but I will make sure that we, of course, stay in touch. I will miss you tomorrow, but Thanks for understanding our little trip. It's going to be fun. All right, so my friends, stick around. We're going to have an after party. Come join us on the after party. YouTube friends, I'm going to share a link in the chat and then click the link and come join us. Locals friends, hang tight. We'll refresh the screen. And as we pause, it's a good time to bring your wife into the room so when we come back on, we can scare the absolute bejesus out of her, which we did yesterday. A lot of fun. All right, so my friends, it's been a great stream. I hope that tomorrow your day is amazing. We'll post some updates from the Grand Canyon and maybe of a shootout and more. So be on the lookout for that. And we'll see you back tomorrow. And then, of course, on Monday, back live. Although we might do some lives. We might be able to do a live on Saturday. I'm not sure. Anyways, we'll see. We'll have to get up there and see what it looks like. But my friends, that's going to be it for us on the day. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being amazing and for liking this channel on your way out. We do appreciate you, and we hope that the rest of your night and your day is amazing. Now, the plan is we are coming back here on the next one. And when we return, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends, and an amazing weekend. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we